Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and so happy that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon, Audible, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two of our favorite guests are joining us first today, Nita Clark and Kathy Doherty. They are celebrating their Reading with Your Kids certified great read, Danny's reading problem, and the fun he had fixing it. Later in the show, we speak to Kimberly Para about her flashcard reading system, and we return to Authorpalooza in Norwalk, Connecticut to speak to Steve Bowling.
Come one, come all, for the mind-bending, dungeon-stomping, time-shifting, dragon-slaying adventure of a lifetime.
What's happening?
Something bigger is happening here.
Yeah.
And someone else is calling these shots.
I'm your biggest fans. I don't want you dying in the third episode. Guardians of the Game is a real play Dungeons & Dragons podcast that's sure to excite and delight listeners of all ages.
How would you like your very own circus show right here?
Something good or something bad?
That is up to interpretation.
Whether you're a seasoned D&D veteran or looking for a wholesome but epic way to get into the game for the first time, Guardians of the Game has you covered. Let's get gaming, Guardians.
Well, my work here is done.
Guardians of the Game premieres on September 18th with new episodes every Wednesday.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. My friends, I am so excited to welcome back a couple of friends to Reading with Your Kids. They're coming to us from Ohio, and we're going to be celebrating their brand new certified great read. It's called Danny's Reading Problem and the Fun He Had Fixing It. Please welcome back to the show first, the author, Nita Clark. Nita, how are you?
Doing great, Jed. Happy to be here.
And the illustrator and daughter, Kathy Doherty. Hey, Kathy, how are you?
Just fine, Jed. Doing well.
I'm so excited to have you. Nita and Kathy have been on the show a number of times. They were one of the first guests on the show way back in, I'm not sure if you were on first in 2017 or 2018, but we love having you on celebrating your books. And I'm especially excited to be able to say that Danny's Reading Problem and the Fun He Had Fixing It is now an official Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very proud of this.
So tell me, you said to me before we started recording that this was a book that you were always meant to write. Why was that?
I think so, because listening to the experts, I learned to read with Dick and Jane. But I knew how to read before I started the school because I read the Spiegel and the Sears and Roebuck catalogs. That's the way I taught myself to read, and I started the school in a little one-room schoolhouse with 8 grades. And yet, by the time I went to the big city of Canton and walked into the 2nd grade, I was one of the best readers in the class. And reading was always easy for me, but I've watched other people struggle. And back in 1967, now this tells you a little bit about how old I am. One of my sons, we were doing our nightly homework, and he's reading to me, and what he's reading isn't even close to what's on the page. And yet when I turned to the back, it was on the page before. He couldn't read. He had just memorized everything that he had heard from the other kids and recited it. I was working at the library, and when I went into the school the next day, I went to the teacher and I said, he can't read. Oh, yes, he can. And no, he can't. And I said, what can I do? And she said, well, you're in the library, just get him more library books. Well, every time I set him down and he tried to read and he couldn't, he was more frustrated, more embarrassed. He wanted to please me, but he couldn't. And I started on a quest to find a way to help him. Well, I had not been taught phonics, but I realized that sounding the words out was the best way to do it. So I looked around and I found a reading course back in 1967, the easy way to, the sound way to easy reading. I ordered the book, I ordered the kit. When I got it, I took it into his class, went to the teacher, and I showed her, and her reaction was, well, you just wasted your money. Well, I gave up, didn't talk to her anymore, and of course, it was kind of frosty every time she came into the library. But I taught my son to read. And from then on, that kit got passed around to so many different people, was used so many different times. I realized that, you can learn to read by looking at words, but you still need the phonics. You need a happy mixture. And with this book, I have tried to do kind of explain to people how they need a happy mixture of both.
I absolutely agree with you. One of the things that we've talked about here in the podcast is how frustrating, and my beautiful wife certainly felt this in her 34 years teaching. It seems as though the powers that be, the administrators, the district, decision makers, they want a one-size-fits-all solution.
Well, they are coming from their perspective. They know how to read. I took the time to talk to the kids and ask them how they felt when we sat down to read. What do you feel when you look at these words? And what do you feel when I ask you to sound them out? Well, my reaction was invariably, well, I remember the A and the sounds for them at the time, but a few hours later or a day later, it's all jumbled up in my head. So I noticed over the years that my husband was a poor reader, but he could do anything I could think of. All I had to show him was what I wanted and the parts, and he could put it together and make it work. And I realized that that's what kids needed. Some of these kids just need to have the parts laid out for them, tell them what you want, and they'll figure it out. We don't send an athlete out to play a game without previous exercises and a change in their attitudes. So I tried to explain to the kids that change your attitude. Look at it from a different perspective. Don't be intimidated by it. And when I wrote this book, I kept it tight. There were things I would have liked to said, but I didn't because I wanted it to have a quick flow. I wanted to keep it tight. I didn't want to intimidate the parents or the kid. Because although as a parent, you can read, but you're not always sure how to translate that to your child and explain to them how to read. Mm-hmm. So I created these little exercises and this comic little skit to make it easy for the kids to have a schematic or a pattern that they could hook together to understand the sounds.
It's really a great service for families. and this is such um, a, a, a difficult issue, I think, for a lot of families, because you're right, kids do learn differently. And if they're in the right school that's teaching the way that they can learn, it's awesome. But if they're not in that right school, it can be very, very difficult. Kathy, you've been the illustrator for all of your mom's books. How does that feel, watching her grow as an author, and the excitement that she obviously has for this book?
It's been a very enlightening experience being her illustrator. Each book has its own personality, and each book's part of her personality. But this one is really different in the fact that I know where she's coming from, because she taught me how to read.
Uh-huh.
So, and the kit that she bought, she used not just for my brother, but she used it for the 3 younger, which I am one of the 3 younger kids. We all learned to read with that kit. And having a child that also had learning disabilities, I know everyone learns different. Mm-hmm. Everyone can do things different. So when it came to illustrating this book, it was one where we want to show Danny being triumphant in the end. Mm-hmm. And it was fun.
Yeah, yeah. I love that that this book is a celebration of a young man, a young boy figuring it out with the help of a loving family.
Yes. And that's what it takes. And if you can teach a child to read and think and have an imagination about the things that's going on around them, they'll teach themselves. They'll educate themselves. I have no degree, and I made this point in the book. I am not educated. I have no formal education. I actually had to drop out of school at the end of my sophomore year. My mom had passed away when I was 8 years old. My dad raised 8 kids that were still at home by himself. I was a daughter that stepped in and tried to help him. Well, come time, at that time, the kids walked home from school and had lunch. There was nobody at home during the day to make sure they were safe, and got lunch and got back to school. So I was given the directive, this is your last day of school. I was heartbroken, but you do what you have to do. But that didn't mean that my education stopped, because I could read, I could think. I was interested in finding out new and exciting things. So I educated myself. And I want that clear. When I wrote this book, I am not writing it as a educated professional. I am writing this book as just an old lady, great-grandmother, 87 years old, that knows the problem and wants to help solve it.
Yeah. Well, I certainly can agree that you don't have a formal, quote unquote, education, but you certainly are educated, and you've brought a lot of wonderful stories to life, and you've made a difference in the lives of many kids all over the country, and I'm guessing all over the world.
I sure hope so, because, like I said, I think that is why I was, this was a book I was meant to write, because reading was always so important to me, that everybody around me knew how to read. I had given that kit to adults that came back and said it helped them learn to read. Yeah. To me, education does not have to occur in a brick building or a building. Education is everywhere. And reading is everywhere. In the book, I tell the kid, you think you can't read, but you read every day. As you're going down the street, you see the McDonald's sign, you read it. You go down and you see the street sign, you read it. You are reading. You are capable. You just got to have the belief in yourself that you can do it. Yeah. And you can do it. Yeah. And that is part of what, I'm hoping that the Annie book tells these kids.
Kathy, your mom has such a passion for learning. when we had LeVar Burton on the podcast, he was telling us that his passion for literacy came from watching his mom and her love of reading. Is that also something that you experienced?
Well, my mom's love of learning has not passed me by. I learned how to produce our books. So I'm learning every day.
She's like her dad. She can do anything I think she can do.
And that can be troublesome sometimes.
Oh, Jed, you don't know some of the things my husband and I got into.
But, her love of learning, I've picked that up. And also with that, my granddaughters, have a love of reading and a love of learning. And, it's just passed on.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Nene, you mentioned your husband a couple of times. I just have to celebrate. This is so wonderful. You just celebrated your 69th anniversary. What an amazing, an amazing thing. What's the secret?
I don't know, Jed, but he tells me he loves me a dozen times a day. A day never goes by that he doesn't repropose. As Kathy knows.
Oh, yes.
Her little granddaughter, our great granddaughter Lana, always refers to him as my honey. He's just wonderful. He's just, I had not had a lot of security in my childhood. And from the day I met him, he made me feel safe.
Wow.
I just knew, and he was so good. We couldn't date without taking my little brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 little sisters and 2 little brothers.
Yeah.
And my husband now, but when he was just, my boyfriend, he was so good with them. And I knew if I was as unfortunate as my mother was and died young, my kids would be well taken care of. And he's just been my rock. He feels so secure, and he shows me he loves me every day. And boy, a woman can't ask for more than it.
That's really, really beautiful that he came into your life. You were sharing with me before that he proposed to you on your third date.
Yeah, third day.
Third day, not the
third day.
Third day.
It wasn't a day. He was home from the service.
Uh-huh.
He was home for leave. He was a paratrooper, and he was home on leave. And from the day I met him, he was there every day.
Wow.
It took him 3 days.
Wow. That's incredible. I'm so happy for you. So happy for your husband.
Oh, yes. I am so fortunate.
Yeah. What do you think? You have this beautiful decades-long marriage. We hear a lot of young people are, kind of turning their back on marriage. They kind of cite statistics.
It's kind of sad because the older you get, the more you need somebody that has your back.
Mm.
You need somebody that when the times get rough and then the sad times come, and Jed, as you know, sad times come for all of us, you need that person in your life that has been with you every step of the way, understands what you've been through, and is there to help you get through it.
Yeah. Well, I am so happy that you and your husband found each other, that you said yes on that third day.
I don't know how such 2 dumb kids could have been smart enough to know that we belong together. But
wow.
I still marvel at that.
That's wonderful. And I'm loving, that love that you and your husband have for each other is obviously spread to your family. Your daughter has been collaborating with you on these books for the 7 years that I've known you.
Yes,
and,
it's just been 7 years. I was an old lady kicking 80 when I started my first book.
What advice would you have for anybody that's out there thinking, I'd love to write a book, but it's too hard. I don't know if I could do this.
Well, write it for yourself first. In fact, I think everybody should write their own life story. And as they're writing it, they would be amazed at how much they learn about themselves.
Mm.
And even if they don't publish it, just getting that down on paper and reading it, you understand some of the things that has happened and why they happened and why you reacted you did the way you did. And sometimes it's a big help in getting you over some trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked a lot about, the benefits of keeping a journal, and
It's important.
just, a
It's
lot of times you can kind of figure out your feelings by putting them down on paper. I know myself, I've kept the journal off and on, and there are a lot of times that I was really angry at somebody and would sit down and tell my journal all about that, and by the time I finished writing it, I wasn't
It didn't seem so important.
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't seem so important. And that's part of, getting along in life and being happy. Because sometimes we have to find our own happiness through tragedy.
Yeah.
And, like I said, my mom died the day before Christmas when I had just turned 8 years old. And 4 years later, my brother that was just older than I was, lost his life in an automobile accident the day after Christmas. And so there was a lot of struggles, a lot of heartbreak to get over. But you can't wallow in that. You have to find that little slice of light that's shining into your hole and pull yourself out and get on with life, because, like I felt, I had to live twice as hard because I had to live for my mom. My mom died at 37 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and I owed it to her not to waste my life.
Kathy, how does it feel to, not only be inspired by your mom, but to share her with the world?
Well, I've been sharing her for quite a long time, because before she started her books, she had a business where she was out, and her personality was part of that business. And the whole county knew her. So I've shared her for quite a few years. And it's kind of easy at this point, because, now we're sharing her more with the whole country, but, and elsewhere. But if her other business she had for almost 30 years. So
31 years and a half.
Yeah.
So, we've been sharing her for a long time.
Wow, that's really wonderful. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Danny's reading problem and the fun he had fixing it, and more about all the books that you've created.
Well, all of our books are available through almost every online book retailer, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can find them almost anywhere online, as well as our website, which is neatreadpublishing.biz. So they're out there everywhere.
Wonderful.
Jen, our slogan for the other business is, life is to be celebrated. Bad times happen. Good times are created. That was our slogan for that business. And we just created so many good times for families, made so many memories. There again, the customer did as much for me as we did for them. And I hope it's the same way with this book. I hope this book does as much for the reader and their children as it does for me.
Wow. And I bet if there's somebody out there that picks up Danny's reading problem and the fun he had fixing it, and the book inspires kids, I bet you'd like to see a picture or a mention on social media.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would really be awesome. Now, with our books, every single one we have written, my granddaughter was in second grade when we wrote the first book, my oldest granddaughter. And she took it in to her teacher, who loved it. And every year since, we have gone back, whenever we have a new book, we go back, and Lily reads the book to her favorite second grade teacher's classroom. And then when her sister started elementary school 4 years ago, her sister's class would come into the Mrs. G's class, and she would read to both classes. And she's already scheduled Danny's reading for September 18th. And Mrs. G can't wait. She's already looked at the book and says it's wonderful. And she can't wait for us to read it. And as soon as you can get in here to read it, please come in and read it.
That's wonderful.
So
it's scheduled for September the 18th. Now, they usually don't read it till closer to Christmas. But she wants it in there now.
Great.
So I'm very excited about the book.
Well, we're excited too. It is a certified great read. You can read our whole review of the book on our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Just click on the Parents Click Here button, and
I hope they love the characters. I hope, because they love the corny grandpa. That is based on my husband and my sons, the way they are with their grandkids. And of course, the instructional grandmother. And it's just, I think there's places in it. I hope you laugh. Everybody that I've watched read it, when they get to the point where I think there's humor, they laugh. So it's not a textbook. Yeah. It's not a boring textbook. It's just, I hope a fun little read for about a half hour that, can change a kid's life.
Awesome. I want to thank you both for being back on the show. I'd love for you to come back next year to celebrate your 70th anniversary and whatever new book you have out.
Well, we will do that. We will look forward to it, and I'm eager to see what you actually, what you think of the book after time it's out. And if you happen to get any feedback, we'd love to hear from you.
We will. We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Danny's Reading Problem and the Fun He Had Fixing It. Our guests have been Nita Clark and Kathy Doherty. My friends, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us on your podcast again, Jed. It's
always fun.
It's joy every time.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. My friends, I am so excited. This is going to be a fantastic conversation, a really important conversation, too. Our guest is here today. She is the driving force behind Flashcard Reads. Please welcome to the show from from Southern Alabama, Kim Para. Kim, how are you?
Hey, Jed. Thanks for having me on your show. I can't wait to talk about all the really cool things about how neurodivergency takes on the form of dyslexia and ADHD sometimes.
I'm excited that you're here because this is it's an important topic, and it's a topic that is approached and dealt with very many different ways. A lot of folks whose kids are dealing with ADHD and I think most parents are initially encouraged to give their kids medications, and those are very strong, powerful, not completely tested, not extensively tested medications. And so you are offering an alternative to those things. Am I right?
For reading. So let's say that you have a child that has trouble tracking during reading, or they have phonetic issues, or they have attention problems, or all the above. Maybe they see words backwards. Maybe they are missing some letters in their words. So what I do is I use flashcards to help them fill in the blanks and take a picture of the word on a flashcard. Like I have the word toad in front of you right now, TOAD. What I would do is I would take another card and I would flash it 10 to 15 times in front of you, just like this. In a half second, we would say it together: toad, 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 toad. And what your brain does over time is it takes all of the information on that card and makes it into a picture, and it stores it into short-term memory. And then through practice throughout the week, it stores it then into long-term memory. So those of us that with dyslexia, I included, and if you have a layer of ADHD, it helps your brain make things more permanent into your brain.
This is fascinating. When you were flashing the card in front of the word toad,
yes,
flashing the blank card in toad, it almost seemed like you were creating a strobe effect.
It can, but it's more like film when you're shooting like 15 to 20 frames.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do that in front of a neurodiverse person, and there's about 20% of us that have difficulty reading and also math issues and things like that, and there's over 12 different kinds of dyslexia. What it does is it actually helps you focus in and frame in the information so that it will be stored in more than one place, because you're using sound. You're saying the word with me, toad. You're flashing it, which is causing the brain to make attention over these letters. And then you're making those connections because they're teaching you things in school like phonetics and letters and writing. And all of these connections are being made in the different parts of your brain and forming a more groovier part into your memory in your short-term and your long-term memory.
You know, it's interesting. My son had some extra energy in middle school, and we worked with him on a program that was very helpful to him. And the way that they explained this program to me, which used balance and different things, different dexterity things, was that for a lot of kids, especially kids with ADHD, information comes in and it's as if the brain is like a librarian, and information comes in, somebody returns the book and the librarian just whips the book over the head and into a big pile. So they saw the information, but then it was thrown and can't find it anymore.
Right.
Is this something similar that, you know, the information is coming in and then it's stored and the neural pathways are, you know, stronger? The kids know where to get that information when they need it?
Right. So they're practicing it 1 to 2 times a day for 10 minutes. And then they're practicing that same information and they're tracking it for 5 times out of the 7 days. And what they're doing is we're training the brain. It's kind of like calisthenics for the brain. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we're exercising it. And we're also storing information kind of in the frontal cortex. And we're teaching the brain to encapsulate it in a picture form. And then we're able to retrieve it because we're also storing it in writing. So it's kind of like we're building a neural network at like a train station. And the more times we practice, the more train stops that we make, the more storage that we have over this information. So we're igniting the brain and making several connections at once, and we're teaching it how to do this. And it's not rote memory. It's like so many other things that are lighting up the brain like a Christmas tree. So because we're exciting the brain and because we're flashing it, we're actually stimulating parts of the brain that are missed because these kids are neurodiverse.
Fascinating. You mentioned that there are 12 types of dyslexia. I have to tell you, we've had many people on the podcast talking about dyslexia, and I've always asked, what is it? No one has ever, and we've had all sorts of experts on, no one has ever mentioned that there are different types of dyslexia.
Yes. So me in particular, when I was a kid, I used to have a stress-induced type of dyslexia where it appeared that the words would swirl around the page and they wouldn't be still for me. And so things got really confusing when I was trying to track each individual word. They would move. And so it was very upsetting. And the more upset you get, the more they swirl around the page, and then you feel like you're lost. And if you're ever asked to read out loud, it's very distressing for students that have this type of dyslexia. Wow. Also, sometimes my numbers would invert And so instead of 611, it would be 116. I also sometimes saw words backwards. So I would have to like play with my eyes a little bit and really focus in on the word read, so it wouldn't read, backwards and start with a D. So and I also got diagnosed later in my life with ADHD. So if you have ADHD, your mind is racing as it is. So if you have a layer on top of dyslexia, it makes it more difficult to learn. The fact that I made C's in elementary school and didn't make worse grades was a miracle. I must have had some amazing teachers trying to help me to sort this out.
Yeah. How did you discover this flashcard technique?
Okay. So when I was in college, I flirted off and on with flashcards because I knew that I had to make the information more concise. So everybody knows about digital flashcards online like Quizlet or other flash remedies. And the goal is to have so much information on like 10 or 20 cards and to group them together so that you can solidify some of that information. Well, at this particular moment in time, I'd been using flashcards pretty productively, and I was getting, I don't know, between 80 and 85% correct by just taking flashcards, and then you would flash them regularly like this. You'd have toad first, then hippopotamus, and then another, card, and so on and so forth. But the problem is that because I'm ADHD, I wasn't able to retain the information for longer periods of time. So it would just lop off. And I got, upset, to the point of being angry because I wasn't understanding why my friends were doing so well. They were making it into the 90%, quartile, and I still was struggling to get 80, 85. And so what happened is that because I was upset, I was pushing the mouse on my computer and it kept on flashing the same word and the same word and the same word. And then when it was flashing the information, I was able to retain it. I actually took a picture of it, and when I closed my eyes, I could see that not only was hydrogen listed, but it was H1 underneath, and then that it was the most plentiful element in the universe. And so when I could see it in my mind's eye, I was like, wait a minute, this changes everything. I can anchor in this vital information, and then I can balloon out the concepts better from those key words.
Fascinating.
And so then I wonder what other applications there are. I wonder if this could help kids read. And so I just kept trying different applications, knowing that I was developing this photographic sort of informational idea in our brains. We joke around that this guy has a photographic memory. Well, we were sort of developing that. Now, it wasn't total concrete long term, like somebody that, can name off, 138 places of pi or something. But we were getting closer to understanding how to help people that were struggling in school retain information longer. And so it was through the flashing that we were solidifying those pictures into long-term memory.
Wow. So your program, talk a little bit about how the program works.
Okay. So you would go to my website, flashcardread.com, and on the splash page, you would see how a child would use it. So the very first video on there shows a child flashing the card. And then at the end of the flashing, the 10 to 15 times, she writes it down. And then we zoom in on, writing the written word. Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but I shouldn't say most. Many children that have dyslexia also spell pretty badly initially. So when you're able to spell the word correctly, you're also reading it simultaneously. So you're correcting two problems at one time. And this brings a lot of gratification because if you have ADHD, my penmanship just is bonkers. It's terrible. I should have been a doctor. So when you're able to zone in on see the word, you're actually able to kind of outline those words better and make your print better as well, because you're retaining it in a different part of your brain, the writing part of your brain, which ordinarily, you wouldn't have access to. You'd be just remembering from rote memory, about how to make the letters. But instead, we're finding that penmanship is improving. We're able to read the letters better from these students that are struggling. We're also, they're able to read and apply phonetics that they have spliced up from other words that they've learned in my program.
So if a kid, using the example that you had of toad, as they're learning that word, they're also able to make the connections between the phonics lessons that they might learn in school, and then when they have another word, like maybe road or whatever.
Yes. So we're building a bridge in between the information that already is supplied to them through their schools, and we're building a bridge so that they can make those connections to those phonetics, those sounds, the spellings, everything all at once, so that they can fill in all those holes that are missing, that are not connecting.
Fascinating. Again, really fascinating. Now, we were talking before we started. This takes an investment. Certainly there's a cost, but I think the bigger investment is the time that the parent will help their child with this flashcard program.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Jed. So it takes 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the afternoon to fully do the program robustly. But let's say that you just don't have enough time. Maybe you've got 3 kids and, just getting out the door to school is a big deal. You can write down those words, carry them with you in the car, and the kid can do them in the car as you're going down the road. Or you can just elect to do it in the afternoon and maybe once before bed. Would be optimal, but what it does is it reprograms the brain into receiving words more easily.
And I'm imagining too, just like the bonds that we build when we're reading with our kids 20 minutes a day, when they're young, and hopefully continuing to read with them as they grow older and become independent readers. Even though your kid might be resistant initially, it's that consistency and taking the time to sit down and say, you know what? I love you. You are the most important thing in my life, and I'm putting down everything to be able to help you for these 10 minutes twice a day.
Right. Or even once. Once would be fine. It'd take you a little bit longer to get there, but not much more. But 20 minutes is optimal. 10 minutes is fabulous.
So how long has the program been available?
I just got this website going with all 52 weeks in June, and we have about 25 people, 25 kids on it, and they are reaping the rewards. And we're starting to see kids that are reading no words whatsoever up to 200 words in about 2 to 3 weeks' time.
Wow, that's really incredible.
It is pretty awesome to see the smiles on their faces and their giggles as they're reading books for the first time.
I bet. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Flashcard Read and the other services that you provide for folks.
Okay. So you can go to flashcardread.com. You can sign up for 2 weeks for free and to see if it works for you and your kid. Then I have, for 6 months, you can join for $99, and for 1 year, it's $149. So of course, the best value would be the $149. You can also see me on Facebook. You can message me on Para Education Solutions. I do one-on-one coaching for parents, students, older adult students that suffer with ADHD and dyslexia. I do some coaching to help you figure out how to get the best study methods going for yourself and how to retain that information in your investment. So any which way that I can help, I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching. So I would love to help your wonderful listeners.
Wonderful. We've had a really great time and fascinating time speaking to the driving force behind Flashcard Read. Our guest has been Kim Parra. Kim, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Hey, I am at Author in Norwalk, Connecticut, and with me here in the studio is Steve Bowling. Steve, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am great, but you and we're married to beautiful, intelligent women. However, they don't have great taste in shirts, because your wife and my wife, they hate my flamingo shirt.
Which I happen to love. You know, they have good taste in men, but not necessarily in men's shirts.
There you go. There you go. So you are an author of a number of different picture books. Tell us about it, please.
Yeah, well, I write mostly in rhyming verse, which I really, really like. And I think the rhyming verse, parents enjoy reading it, and I really think the kids enjoy hearing it. It's fun for them. Helps them learn language, too. It helps them learn about the concept of language.
I recently had a discussion with a reading specialist, and she was saying one of the reasons that rhyming picture books are so popular with kids, it actually helps them hear how a fluent how a fluent reader reads, with that rhythm and that meter. And so I think, rhyming picture books are just great ways to start out.
I think so too, and when someone thinks about rhyming verse, they think it's about the rhyme. It's more important is the cadence, is the rhythm and the cadence. And I believe that kids with rhyming verse, they start to anticipate the word a little bit, and again, they start to understand the concept of language and how language works. Yeah. So it's for kids, I think it's great, and plus it's fun to hear. They like it's sing-songy sometimes. They like that type of thing. I know I do.
Yeah. It's interesting. Being the host of Reading with Your Kids, it's so great because not only do I get to speak to great authors and being part of great events like Authorpalooza, I get to speak to experts in all sorts of different fields. I was speaking to a speech pathologist, and we were talking about the phenomena of, I know a number of recording artists, musicians, who on stage sing beautifully, flawlessly, but off stage they have very severe stutters and speech impediments, and it's so fascinating. They haven't been able to figure out how that works.
Even accents. It's sometimes you'll hear someone sing, they sing in a certain way, and then you hear them talk, and their accent is completely different from how they sing, which is fascinating to me. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that works.
Right, yeah. So much of the world to figure out.
And it's a lot of fun figuring out.
Yeah. So I see you have it looks like a series about a character named Simon.
Yeah. Simon's a young bird, and he goes on some adventures, and he has a lot of friends in his world. And then I have some other books on one is Grandma's House is Haunted, which is fun because when I was a kid, I could swear my grandmother's house was haunted. And then I have a Christmas book, and so I've had one coming out about a scarecrow. So I like to do different types of scenarios and books.
So how long have you been writing picture books?
Since 2009, very end of 2019 was when I came out with the Christmas book.
Okay.
And then COVID came along, and then that stopped everything, not writing, but getting the word out.
Well, I've had so many authors who started their journey during COVID, during all that lockdown. There have been over 1,200,000 podcasts that started in COVID. So it's good to meet an author who started before the world shut down.
Yeah, right before it. So I expected it to be a little different, to be able to read at schools and go to libraries and things, but that was completely shut down.
Right.
So, my journey was a little bit different.
You were mentioning cadence. Do you have a favorite cadence or rhythm that you like to write in, or is it all over the place?
It's funny. Most of the books I write have the same cadence. I have some new ones that are going to be coming out that are completely different cadence, completely different. So I just think that once I get that in my head, it stays there, and then I write with that. I almost can't deviate while I'm writing it, but I do have different types.
So, are you also a musician, or has just been this ability to write with the rhythm just come natural to you?
I'm not a musician at all. I wish I were. I would have liked to have been. I wish I took up an instrument when I was younger. But I seem very comfortable in that type of writing. I like that writing. I'm comfortable in it, more so than just regular prose. So I guess it's probably some natural things, and then maybe just some learned craft, I suppose.
So I think it's safe to say, since we have the same taste in shirts, I know I'm a lot older than you, but 2019, you didn't just get out of college. What made you decide, right now I'm going to become a children's author?
I had the idea for a book quite years ago for this Christmas book, and I had seen we were in South Carolina for Christmas. We were visiting people. We were all staying at this one place. So the women in the group said, "Let's get a Christmas tree." It was Christmas Eve. They were going to decorate, and the men were in charge of going out and finding a Christmas tree late at Christmas Eve. There was nothing. And we're having fun. And there was a parking lot that sold Christmas trees. It was completely abandoned because they were all done. And there was a scrawny little Christmas tree there that was left alone. And we thought, hey, this is great. We're bringing it back. The ladies weren't too happy about it, but at least it was a tree. And from there, I wanted to write a story about that. And quite a few years later, I just decided I would do it. So that's how I entered.
You kind of scared me there. I thought they sent you out into the woods on Christmas Eve with an axe, which could have been very dangerous.
Well, we weren't that manly.
So how's your journey been? How does it, now that we've opened up again, you have a chance to get out, read this book to kids and present it? What's that like for you?
To me, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot. I mean, I like writing for children. You can create these new worlds. That's why I like writing the best. And these new characters, new worlds. And kids will be enveloped in that world. When you read to them, you could see they're just in that world. They're imagining it. Their minds are working. That's what I really like about it. That's the most fun, I think.
That's fantastic. We should tell everybody where to go to find out more about you and find out more about your books.
Yeah, I'm on Amazon. They're all on Amazon. But Stephen G. Bowling is my StephenGBowling.com is my author site, and you can see everything on there. I have a new one coming out in September of this year. So Winslow Scarecrow, and yeah.
Well, we want to invite you to visit readingwithyourkids.com and click on the author button at the top of the page and come back on the show for a full interview.
I would love to. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Stephen, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you, too.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope it inspired you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We also hope that you love the show so much that you are motivated to write a review. Leave us a review on whatever podcasting app you listen to. If you're listening to us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, let your local station manager know that you love Reading with Your Kids. We also hope that you will join us on social media, Facebook.com/ReadingWithYourKids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/ReadingWithYourKids. And of course, we'd love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. If you check out our blog, you can read our entire review of Nita Clark's new book, Danny's Reading Problem and the Fun He Had Fixing It. You can also send us a message using the contact button up at the top of the page. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better. And let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of Reading with Your Kids. And if you're an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest here on Reading with Your Kids. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking all of our guests, Nita Clark and Kathy Doherty, Kimberly Para, and also Steve Bowling. I want to thank my team. We have a great new team of interns. First off, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, and our new interns, Raylene Tang and Alyssa Montiero. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.